Well, let me put it this way: it's been a wild week. I was minding my own business, covering the story from East Palestine, Ohio, with the derailed train and the subsequent toxic fallout. Whenever I got a message from this guy named Matthew. Now, at first, I thought he was just another fan of my work. Not that I have very many, but y'all have been encouraging me here over the last few weeks. But it turned out he was a certified cyberbully who had been harassing people left and right all across the country. And the more I looked, the more I was amazed because apparently he had even been harassing Erin Brockovich. She was on his list. I mean, talk about ambition. So anyway, I refused to back down from this harassment. And he went full on crazy, started threatening me to come to my house and all of those things. So it got even more bizarre. He started claiming that he was working with the FBI and that he was some sort of source for the New York Times. And the more I started looking into it, it was like people left and right were coming out of the woodwork. I've had probably half a dozen people say that this person has targeted them online. So the good news is I'm not alone, and maybe I should be a little bit flattered. But it turns out there's all of these people, and there's even a movie out about him, and it's called Social Media Monster. My guest today is we have the filmmaker, and we have a psychologist who has done profiles on him and has a website that helps people with cyberbullying. I'm going to get more to that here in just a moment. First, I wanted to play you the trailer. This is the Social Media Monster. It's won multiple awards and is currently touring the festival movie scene, and it's going to be out on Amazon here soon. So watch this, and we're going
Matt Burdick was a con artist, and he tried to con St. Joe.
I think he decided he wanted to rile some feathers up, and he went, hey, that's a decent-sized city. Let's go there and see what happens.
Who is Matthew Burdick? Matthew Burdick is an experimental gonzo filmmaker, journalist, activist, and philanthropist.
He seems to really want to appear as someone influential and important.
When I pitched my show to Cartoon Network, they passed.
Yeah, he just told me he was a millionaire, multimillionaire.
All over the country, I have investigated and researched these Superfund sites.
For somebody who claims to be just nationally widely known, I had no idea who he was.
I filmed in first person, and nobody had ever done this before. There was never a first person film about homelessness.
I think I got a couple hundred messages.
But when you start threatening people with bodily harm, that starts getting into, that is a crime.
I got over 1,500 messages from Matthew Burdick. He emails us nonstop terroristic threats against nuclear power facilities to the city employees of St. Joseph.
I don't know how crazy he is, or if he's not crazy at all.
I'm not I'm good at what I do, and then everything else I would probably be terrible.
To insult everybody who sees through his bullshit.
You can't go around the country doing this crap.
I don't think Matthew Burdick is mentally ill. I think he's just a dick.
Okay, so that is the trailer for the film. You can find that on YouTube if you'd like. My first guest is Peter John Ross, a filmmaker who has directed a powerful new film about the devastating effects of cyberbullying. The Social Media Monster has been making waves in the film festival circuit, and it's set to be released on Amazon, like I had already said. And today we're excited to hear from him about his experience in making the film and his insights on how we can help fight back against cyberbullying. And my second guest is Dr. Nusatelli, a licensed psychologist and online safety expert. He is the founder of iPredator website, which provides valuable resources to individuals and other organizations that are seeking to combat cyberbullying, cyberstalking, and other forms of online harassment like we're talking about. Let's see here. Let me get y'all on the screen. Hey, guys.
Hello.
How's it going? So I'm excited to learn more about this iPredator concept and what you've been working on, and to hear those insights and how we can make the internet safer for everybody. Peter, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got started with all this?
Almost 11 years ago, on an indie film site, I had a bad interaction with a guy that at the time was calling himself Taylor Hanachek. And then I started getting emails from a Matthew Allen Kane. And at some point I just said, yeah, I have no interest in any of this. Please stop contacting me. And then he started, you know, harassing me hard via email. And I didn't know his real name for several months because he just kept talking about me. And somebody on YouTube who'd had better interaction said his real name is Matthew and gave me his actual last name. And I've been dealing with this ever since. I had a local PBS show called Frame Lines on filmmaking. He contacted and harassed the station. He made all kinds of threats to expose them and do things. And they canceled my series, not because they believed any of the accusations he made, but simply because they're like, we're sick of dealing with it and we're just going to kill it. So it's kind of like giving in to a cyber terrorist. And he's just kept going and going. But the documentary came about because he went to this city that was in the trailer, St. Joseph, Missouri. I'd never heard of this city before. He went there and started his little routine, which is just he involves himself in some kind of local situation, then uses social media to attack city officials, police, people of authority, individuals that are in the city that might be influential. And he has what's called a flame war. Like he will go on Facebook and it'll get lit up with him fighting with people. And I witnessed this happening in St. Joseph, and I actually felt like I could make a documentary about St. Joseph because I'm not really involved and I didn't know any of the people there at the time. So I started to document it, and I thought it was a very interesting story. And the most important thing is that it dealt with a larger issue, which is it isn't about this guy, Matthew. It's about how someone can use social media and terrorize a lot of people in a community and get away with it. I mean, to this day, he has suffered no significant consequences for anything he's done. And I think that's very interesting because it's about something larger than this one guy.
So, Doc, did I pronounce your last name right? I should have asked you that before we had started. Can you
Just call
correct
me
me?
Michael. It's Nucitelli, but you can call me Michael. That's fine.
Nucitelli. I can hear it. So how did you meet Matthew?
Well, I've never met Matthew.
Okay,
What
you've just done the profile, right?
I did the profile. I was unfortunate. Well, not unfortunately. I'm very fortunate. I'm very proud to be affiliated with Social Media Monster and most certainly Ross. But it all started, goodness, probably about the end of November, first week of December. I literally had retweeted the Social Media Monster trailer, which you just showed. I
Yeah.
retweeted it. He picked it up, and then he began to target me. Within a day or two, he wrote an email, which I think he had thought I was employed by somebody else, but he had written an email to my practice administrator. By day, I have my own group practice. I have psychologists and therapists, and we work with the chronically mentally ill. And he sent an email making all these allegations about me, and then alleging and stating that he was going to write the Office of Professional Discipline State Education Board stating I was engaged in unethical behavior. Why? Because I was supporting Social Media Monster. And from that point on, once he made that threat about going after my license and my capacity to practice, that is when I began to compile data. And if you haven't read, I wrote a concept, well, not a concept, a blog post that addresses what I call a prime example of what I call a predatory troll.
Yeah. Why do you think that people or this person they feel like they have to do this? Is it a compulsion? I mean, can they help themselves?
Well, Matthew is, again, I've never assessed the man. I've never conducted a psychological evaluation. So I'd essentially be an armchair psychologist sitting here by throwing out diagnosis, which I don't like to do. I do hope one day there is a forensic evaluation, a psychiatric evaluation that is published so we can understand if he's axis 1, axis 2. And I won't go into what I really believe I think is going on, but he is what I call an eye predator. Real quickly, eye predator is a concept that I wrote back in 2009, published in 2010, and it includes 8 different types of online aggressors. There is the cyberbullying, which occurs amongst children. The adult form is internet trolls, cyber stalkers, cyber harassers, cyber criminals, cyber terrorists, and the most deviant of the eye predators is your online child predators and online child pornography consumers and distributors. Yeah. Matthew turned out to be what is called an internet troll. Now, the internet troll, which is the classic internet troll, has been around since the beginning of the internet, where they go online and their whole job and their whole activity is to piss you or somebody off. Once they're able to provoke another online user, they feel good about themselves, they pat themselves on the back, and they move on to other online users they're going to target.
I feel like I really played into that because, I mean, he told me that I was going to be investigated by something of the EPA just because I was interviewing people from this town. I mean,
yes.
And up until about, an hour ago, I really did believe some of the things I'd first read about him. I was like, oh, this just must be a former TV guy that just went off the rails or something. But from what I'm hearing, a lot, like, he's just, so that side is this, I mean, there's a couple of aspects there. There's the cyberbully, and then there's this delusions. These delusions are.
Well, if I may, again, we don't have to get into semantics. You can certainly say cyberbullying, but cyberbullying specifically is child-on-child cyber attacks.
Okay. Troll is a different term.
Yes,
entirely.
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, again, but when people, call me and in my volunteer work, when they say they're cyberbullied, I certainly don't correct them because I know what it means. But the adult manifestation of cyberbullying is cyber harassers, cyber stalkers, and then what we have are internet trolls. Now, as I said real early, and not to go into too much because it's important we talk about Social Media Monster, but Social Media Monster documentary literally was almost written to validate my theory. There is what I call the predatory troll. The internet troll is looking just to provoke you and to move on. Predatory troll is a whole different creature. It is almost like a severe manifestation of the internet troll. Not only is the predatory troll looking to target you, he now goes after your job, your loved ones, every aspect of your life. He now goes down to completely and utterly character assassinate and destroy who you are online. And oftentimes, they will then go to target your offline world as well. In my situation, and this isn't the first time I've been trolled, because I am the creator of a concept called iPredator from 12 years ago that deals with trolls. But what did he do? He immediately went after my job. By the grace of God, I have my own group practice. I am the owner. So it fell on deaf ears. But he was looking to actually go after my career and to begin to make threats. Whether or not he actually reported to the state, I don't know. I was never contacted. But this is what predatory trolls will do. And Mr. Matthew certainly fits a predatory troll. And then maybe later I can tell you real quickly that he certainly fits, which is even more serious, is an eye predator.
So you're both working on this film. You're being trolled at the same time. How do you go about researching and developing out this sort of film?
Well, the funny thing is I had already been researching it by living through it, unfortunately. But what had happened was over the years, there is a group of people that are victims of his harassment that we've all kept in touch. We have an email thread.
I've had several reach out to me.
Well, Matthew called that an internet vigilante group and even claimed in court that we conspired together, random people from across the country. Like, to give an example, a former homicide detective from the Los Angeles area Diane Dimond, a journalist who broke the original Michael Jackson story, Jane Hitchcock, who's a cyber harassment expert, that we all just randomly decided one day we're going to pick Matthew and destroy his life. And he tried that in court, and the ruling, because after starting the documentary, I filed for a civil stalking protection order. Well, it was just granted in August against him. And it even states in the ruling that it's like, he made all these assertions under oath, but he did nothing to substantiate it. Because it isn't true. There's no evidence of something that's never happened. And it's just weird. This with Matthew, the strangest thing is this immediate need to slingshot and become the victim. Like, look at what he did. I mean, the whole reason I'm here is other people in this group are watching him like a hawk because they're very worried about my safety. I mean, Matthew has threatened to put a drywall knife into my skull, to blow up my car, to throw Molotov cocktails through my front window, to bash my skull in with a baseball bat. He used to be very overt with his threats with me. There was no gray area about it. Now, he would make the threat, then immediately delete it because he learned that Facebook has a filter to where Facebook basically takes a snapshot of everything there like once every 6 minutes or once every 8 minutes. So he knows he can threaten you, and if he deletes it within that 5-minute mark, it never got recorded. I mean, he does really dumb things, but he is not stupid.
Yeah, he's
Matthew
launching all
is-
these websites and videography. You know what I was saying the other day? He has like some sort of drive to want to investigate EPA sites. Like there's something that could have been there if he wanted to channel that energy into something positive, but everything he does outside of that just overshadows any kind of, good works that he would like to do.
I think he just never actually finds the time to do any of the alleged good works.
Yeah.
He claims to be an
stuck up there.
activist. He claims to be an activist, a journalist, a filmmaker, but he does none of them. Even his activism, he seems to think picking a fight with someone and having an argument and then slipping in random factoids about Superfund sites with the EPA somehow equates to activism, and it doesn't.
So
he's not an activist. He's certainly not a journalist. Just because you claim to have a newspaper doesn't make it so.
So you can speak from your personal experience, Matthew, and from your 12 years of research into the topic of trolls and cyberbullying and harassment. So what would you say to people that are wanting to protect themselves online that become the brunt of trolls? Because I'm sure Matthew is not the only troll out there.
No. As Dr. Nooch will tell you, there are probably thousands of him out there, right?
Well, certainly there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Matthews out there. And that's what's most important. First and foremost is, I did not participate in the development of Social Media Monster, but I am the first one to raise my hand and say this one needs to win awards. I have been fortunate to have a private viewing of the documentary, and I watched it twice, and I was floored. Because the thing is, again, when I wrote iPredator, by day, as I said, I'm a clinical psychologist. I have a group practice. I work with the chronically mentally ill. But for the last 12 years after work and on the weekends, I have volunteered providing free help to those who've been cyber attacked. So over the last, decade, I have spoken to many, many people who have been targeted by your Matthews. I mean, obviously there were others, but when it comes to being trolled, Matthew is one of, legions of Matthews are out there. And what's unfortunate is that there really is no recourse. And Ross brought that up. And what you see when you're watching social media monster, even for myself, I could feel inside me the rage build because of all the people that I've helped. Goodness gracious, there's been many. Essentially, I was the last straw. They had already been to the police. They had been to court systems. They have been told by their loved ones that they're being melodramatic, that they're overreacting. Just block them and turn it off. And what they fail to realize, the loved ones, is that the person, the online user, the victim, is being traumatized. So when they would call me, it's, after they're Googling cyber stalking, they come past and they see they call me, and that's when I hear that they have at the end of the rope. And we're here, gentlemen, in 2023, and yet I am telling you, we still do not have a system, a process in place to help people that are victimized. And goodness gracious, Facebook, Instagram, any open source social networking site we talk about, there isn't a mechanism to help. Like, for instance, you getting trolled and defamed and character assassinated in the past couple of days on Twitter by Matthew, what was your recourse?
None. I filed several reports on his tweets, and I couldn't really do anything about his emails. It was just mainly stressful. I found it funny because it's the epitome of a guy in the van down by the river, and I found it hilarious, but at the same time, it was unsettling because it was this. I felt a force, pulling my energy away from me, and I definitely did not like that.
And if I may, not to shrink you, but I must ask, in the beginning stages, before you had spoke to Ross, before you realized, did you actually take some of his insults, did you take it seriously, as if what if? Because if I may,
I don't think I took it. I don't think I took it seriously, just because it was so outlandish. He was an informant for the FBI, talking about the cases he's working on Twitter.
The vast majority of folks that I've helped, and God bless all of them, again, I keep it all anonymous, but the vast majority of people who have called me, they actually believe, or at least they may not have wholeheartedly believed, but they certainly questioned the veracity and whether or not it was actually true or not. And for them, it created an enormous amount of stress,
gaslighting,
fear, thinking about, is this troll now going to call my husband, going to call my job? And in many circumstances, that troll had called the job, had called the husband or the wife, and it had really created some incredible problems for the person.
And if I may, James,
yeah,
I was out of town on a shoot for part 2 of the documentary when this whole thing started.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I got home when I got back to the hotel from a shoot that I saw people had caught what was going on. If I remember, by the time I contacted you, I believe you had said you'd already called the police and a private investigator.
I called an investigator. I didn't call the police.
Okay. Yeah. Cause one of the biggest contentions Matthew has is Matthew believes that I'm causing people to experience fear of him that they weren't experiencing before. So I'm curious, honestly, is that how you feel? Do you feel that it was me and or the documentary that made you experience fear?
It definitely wasn't you or the documentary. If anything, that kind of eased whatever just anxiety I had going back and forth with him. I felt like I constantly had to defend myself. He kept tagging me on Twitter and then just saying outlandish things. He's nobody, but it was this pool. There was some stress. It's been stressful. It's been a stressful couple of days.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing that I think this is what's interesting on the grander scale. That it used to be, because I'm now 51 years old. So I had one foot in the old world and one foot firmly in the computer, internet age and social media age as well. But any place you used to be able to go before, you could get a hold of a person to talk to them to try to help you. Have you ever tried to talk to a human being at Facebook, Twitter?
It's impossible. It's impossible. Only maybe if you schedule a call about spending money on ads, but even Twitter doesn't even talk to you.
Nope. Facebook will not talk to you about anything. There's no phone number for any of these companies. So it's not even about complaints from their customers. It's if you have genuine fear for your safety, all they say is call the police.
Well, the customers are the companies paying the advertising. We're the product.
Exactly. I mean, our info that they're selling to them.
Yes.
But so, I mean, it's just really sad that you go to the police. I just had the police over here after things he had done where he violated my civil stalking protection order just a few months ago. Excuse me. And the police, I actually asked the police how much, because they were young guys fresh off the academy. And I asked them, how much training did you have? One guy said approximately 45 minutes on cyber crimes. The other one said they spent about 2 hours at the police academy. Now, think about how much in 2023 people exist and spend time and their lives online and with social media. Name me one 25-year-old who doesn't have this, that doesn't have that in front of their face the majority of their day. So the problem is it's not law enforcement's fault, A, that they didn't get training, but B, the laws have not caught up. The laws, and especially, as I've discovered, the judicial system. The judicial system is firmly in the 20th century, while we have a lot of 21st century crimes that may not even be considered crimes today. The greatest example I can give is, according to the courts, if you need to serve someone, like you can't proceed with anything in court until after the other party has been served. According to the court, if they're like hiding from service, if they're ducking getting a process server to give them something, or making sure their mail gets rejected so they can kind of avoid court, you have an option called service by publication. That's your only option. According to the court, it is more effective to post a print ad in a print newspaper than it is to directly email someone in 2023.
That's, yeah. That kind of gets to a question I was going to ask about how cyber stalking has changed over time. And I guess that can go to the point that our laws have not caught up with how our communications have developed over the last 2 decades.
Police are trained to deal with the real world, and police and judges will actually say out loud, if it happened online, it wasn't real.
Yeah.
Try to tell a 19-year-old that something that happened on Instagram isn't real.
Yeah.
That it didn't happen to them if they were threatened.
Yeah. So what do you hope what do you hope the impact from the film will be?
I mean, I don't have the ego anymore to pretend that I'm going to affect some major change in the world. But my hope is that people that are victims will feel like they're not alone. They'll feel like this isn't just happening to me. So there's power in that, and there's a power in getting together. I mean, when I filmed the first set of interviews, it was one of the most cathartic experiences I've ever had. Not only as a filmmaker, but as a person. It's like an AA meeting. It's like, I thought I was the only one going through this. And it was just that sharing. And it took Matthew's power away. I honestly believe that Matthew feels power when he scares someone. When he said to you, I'm going to hunt you down and force you to do an interview against your will with my film crew that he doesn't have. The fact that you reacted at all, the fact that you contacted PI, he felt a tickle of power. I think he felt emboldened by that. I think that made him feel good, like he is somebody.
Is that typical, Doc? Is that
most certainly. Well, again, I was just looking at I didn't want to forget the 4. It's called the dark tetrad, which the University of Manitoba did a huge study back in 2014, and they came out with this wonderful presentation. I mean, about internet trolls / predatory trolls. The dark tetrad: narcissistic, psychopathic, Machiavellian, and sadistic.
Yeah, I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about this.
It is by far one of the most important aspects when it comes to understanding what I call the eye predator, what you may call the internet troll, or I certainly call the predatory troll. But what's most important, and Ross mentioned it, what Social Media Monster does is a documentary when it gets out there. By the grace of God, hopefully it'll begin to allay fears and the anxieties. Because I'll say it again, and not to belabor, Matthew is one of thousands. And again, I speak from personal experience in my volunteer work. Now, Matthew and what he has done, I would say he is in the severe type of predatory troll, but it is amazing how people are not heard. They can't go to the loved ones. They certainly can't access the judicial or law enforcement because they're not being helped. So all of their concerns are falling on deaf ears. And when they go to their loved ones, we've all heard of it, it's called victim shaming, to where they're re-victimized and told, you're crazy, you're being melodramatic, and what's worst of the worst, just turn it off. And Ross just, how can we turn off information technology? Dear God, we live in the information age. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, we are pretty much enveloped by information communication technology. And guess what? It's not going away anytime soon.
Oh, and with Matthew, we just saw today, he has a pattern over the last decade that's absolutely clear, which is he starts to harass someone, even if he doesn't consider it harassment. When he starts, like you said, tagging every one of his tweets with your name, sending you emails and emails and emails and emails, even if he's not making direct violent threats, which I don't know why he thinks the threat has to be violent to be against the law. Every single state in the United States says that what makes it harassment is, does he try to instill fear? Did he make you fear for your safety? It doesn't matter if he made a threat of violence. All that matters is that he did something with the intent to try to make you feel scared. And one of the things he does is by just sending you email, tweet, Facebook post, nonstop, tagging you all the time. When he starts to realize you've blocked him and you're not paying attention to him, he'll just create another account. Mm-hmm. Like he did today. He made a Fillmore Street Films, Fillmore Films on Twitter, just to make sure you knew he could get past the block and make you fear for your safety again.
And you said he has hundreds of email addresses.
Yes. I have personally documented well over 100 email addresses. And in the course of the hearing, I went through every time he tried, because most of the emails are just like the Fillmore films. He claims it isn't him, but the character he invents is always a fan or an assistant that he doesn't have that agrees with him 100% on everything, magically has intimate knowledge of his thought process, activities, and history.
That'd be awesome.
Have you ever known another human being that agrees with you 100%?
I can hardly find somebody who agrees with me 10%, it seems like.
I mean, and so it's like his characters are pretty easy to spot because no one is that much of a zealot that they believe someone 100%. It just doesn't exist. So it's just, I don't know. I don't understand it. I guess it's because he's not, I mean, if Burdick were to do what he just did today to Elon Musk, his account would have already been banned. But because I know when he harasses me, it's because I'm not important. I'm not bringing in ad dollars or lots and lots of interactions on Twitter. So they really don't care what happens to me at Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else. They have these rules. All of them have rules about permanent bans. He's on his 12th or 14th account today on Twitter, and they do not care. They don't care about the safety of the users. Twitter is the worst of the worst.
Well, you know, I'm an adult. Like I can get over it. You know, I just need to just not give it any more energy. So my question is, and this might be up your alley, Doc, would be, what role like would parents have, say, if something this extreme was happening, to their child.
Well, if I may, it's not if extreme, it does happen. I mean,
Yeah.
today in the children of the information age, as I said, just like adults, from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, they are using their cell phones, their mobile devices. And we are the first in human civilization to deal with the phenomenon called cyberbullying. And what cyberbullying is child on child cyber attacks. So when we talk about parents, obviously parents getting involved as quickly and as early as possible with their child in terms of what they're doing online, setting strict boundaries. Now, real quickly, because we don't have too much time, getting back to Social Media Monster and iPredator, I just want to present what iPredator is, because Mr. Matthews certainly fits criteria for iPredator, and it's very straightforward and simple. One, the use of information technology to harm another online user. Two, a self-awareness of causing harm using information technology. And three, which Mr. Matthews certainly admits, is the creation, use, and implementation of online deception. If you, Matthew, or anybody meets those criteria, they are an iPredator. And the biggest thing that you experience, as well as Ross, including myself, most, if not all, predatory trolls create and implement what is called disinformation. Misinformation is publishing facts, but you think it's true, but it's not. It's an honest mistake. Disinformation is very different. With intent, it is knowingly creating bogus, malevolent content and putting it out there in a campaign, knowing it's wrong. That is called disinformation. And predatory trolls, including many other types of predators, use it on a regular basis, disinformation. And it's really unfortunate, because what happens is when a troll puts out a disinformation campaign, like Matthew does, he puts out an enormous amount of data and accusations about who he's targeting. And all that is required is a little snippet of that content for somebody to say, that sounds like it could be true. And then it could actually metastasize and turn into something that can go viral and be very damaging, not only to somebody's online presence and reputation, but what we're learning is their offline livelihood.
All right, guys. Is there anything else that everybody should know before the film? When is the film going to be on Amazon?
I can't give the exact release date at this time.
Okay.
We have a date, but I'm not allowed to release it yet.
Okay.
So it's coming out soon, and I'm hoping people like it. But something to go with what Dr. Newt just said is there is a step that police officers are not. This is something I want to give as advice, like you said, to parents or even adults that are experiencing cyberbullying, which is Facebook, Google, and Twitter, and all social media sites do have a law enforcement only hotline. So if you go to the police, you have to be proactive and ask the cops to call the law enforcement hotline, because that's kind of the thing. There's the whole thing with the Internet Decency Act or Computer Decency Act. I'm not sure which one that is, but it's the Section 230 law, which absolves all social media companies cannot be sued for what users do on their platforms. And I have mixed feelings about that. On the one hand, Google employees have referred to it as they're like a gun manufacturer. They're not responsible for what people do with their guns, meaning Google, Gmail, YouTube, all of them. And I kind of agree with that. But the problem is when you don't have police or law enforcement that are anywhere near helpful or even able to stop people from violating their rules, why can't they do more? These are multi-billion-dollar companies that are extremely profitable that don't spend any money on helping the users be more safe. To what they've all done, they've all switched over to AI bots to moderate content. Do you think an AI bot really understands the subtlety and humor Have you been hearing lately about people going, I said something innocuous about the Holocaust and I got a 30-day ban? You know, that happens a lot. Then you have somebody threatening to bash someone's skull with a bat, and you come back with, hey, that didn't violate our terms of service. It doesn't make any sense, and it's cheaper, so the companies are going to go that way, but they should be hiring more people to look at this with way more eyeballs and helping the users be more safe. And it's staggering to me that Matthew is allowed to proliferate on social media as he does.
Well, I think I got a lot of people to report him, so maybe that'll do something, at least that one profile. Anyway, so Doc, I really appreciate you taking the time. Peter, good luck on the part 2, part 3. Hopefully not. But I really appreciate you guys taking the time, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. Look for the film. It's Social Media Monster, and it's winning awards. It's doing the film circuit right now, and look for it on Amazon, and you can find the trailer that I played at the beginning on YouTube. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.